Welcome, welcome. I'm Valorie Burton. I am CEO of the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute, which I founded, I cannot believe, 14 years ago now. And I'm just excited about you joining me and joining Michelle Smith today. We're going to have a really great conversation. And we love having these. We call them Coach Training Intensive preview calls because we do the Coach Training Intensive 4 times a year. We love being able to just celebrate Coaching Week. In fact, I think it's International Coaching Week. And it's a powerful way for us to talk through all of the opportunities of coaching and to talk with someone who's been there and done that on this coaching journey, and their coaching journey is flourishing. I love sharing these stories, and it's even more special today because this is someone I have known for if I say how long we've known each other, then we're kind of giving away some things, but it's more than a quarter century. I cannot believe that. But anyway, so let me just kind of dive in for where we are. I would love to know where you all are. Okay, before I dive in with Michelle, I would love to hear, where are you joining us from? Where are you joining us from? Just type it in the chat. Would love to see that. I am outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And Michelle is outside of, well, are you still out? You're outside of Dallas, right?
That's right.
The Metroplex, as they call it, my old stomping ground.
Right.
Awesome.
Somewhere
Mary,
between Dallas and Fort Worth.
Dallas, Fort Worth, right. Mary, I see you in Canada. Yep. Turquoise, you're here in Atlanta. Adrian in Kansas City, Kansas, not Missouri. Awesome. Jennifer in Maryland. We got North Carolina, Boston, Georgia, Fairbanks, Alaska. Y'all, I am trying so hard to get to Alaska. It's my last state. So this is on my life list to get to all 50 states. Alaska's the last one for both me and my husband. So we will get there, hopefully this year. I see you there, Larry in Bahrain. Wow, so
Wow.
good to see you. Mirjam in Egypt. Amazing. I love how the internet connects us all. Arizona, Washington, more North Carolina, DC, Philly, Alabama, Connecticut, Chicago. Oh, yes, Virginia, DeKalb. I see you, Michelle, New Jersey. Excellent. And more Dallas. So I'd also like to know how many of you have considered coach training? How many of you have considered it? Some of you have already been through it. If you've been through it, tell us that. If you're thinking about becoming a coach, or you're just trying to figure out this coaching thing, let us know that. I see Turks and Caicos. Sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Sophie, trying to find a program. Well, we're glad that you are joining us today. I remember going through that process. I'm one of those people, Michelle, I don't know if you're like this too, but I do a lot of research. Sometimes I get stuck in the research where I am thinking, planning, researching, getting all that stuff, and then I do it some more and some more because I want to make the absolute right decision. I see you just finished the coaching intensive. Yep, excellent, Adrian. Trying to get involved. Looking at it at a later date, Agatha. Angelique, you've been through my program with Maxwell Leadership and you're interested in CaPP. I'm so glad you're here. Many of you know I'm the coaching mentor for Maxwell Leadership, which is John Maxwell, and have been able to create an entire program with them that's all on demand. And many of you ask, and we often answer, how CaPP is different. CaPP is different in part because our program is ICF accredited. It's also live, which is a part of what you need if you decide to go on for an ICF credential. But what we've created in Maxwell Leadership really is awesome. And I love all of you Maxwell Leadership certified team members. Excellent, Tamara. I'm seeing all of you. Yep. Larry, I hope you're enjoying those coaching modules. Excellent. Natasha, you've already graduated from our program. Yep. Excellent, Jennifer. I see all of you. So if you all have questions as we're talking today, please kind of make note of those because we will do some Q&A at the end of our conversation. So I started coaching 22 years ago. Really, I discovered my mission. I had been trying to figure out what it was. My prior career was in public relations. I had my own public relations agency in Dallas, where I lived for 8.5 years. I was good at it. Communication is something that tends to come naturally for me, but I thought there was something else I was meant to be doing and just had an epiphany that I was supposed to be inspiring people to live more fulfilling lives, that I do it through writing and speaking. I know that, everybody doesn't have an epiphany, but I had an epiphany in 1999 while I was at the NABJ conference. That's the National Association of Black Journalists. It was their unity convention that year. Had this epiphany. I started writing and speaking, and being that I was in PR and dealing a lot with the media, I kept getting these opportunities, and they wanted to call me something because, the media has to give you a title. And they kept calling me a life coach, and I kept arguing with them. And I thought, this keeps coming up. Let me kind of look into what this is about. For me, when I went through my first coach training, which was with the late Thomas Leonard, who's considered the founder of the life coaching profession, he was absolutely amazing. When I did that, when I finally did that, it took me a couple of years of skepticism about what coaching was and why it was necessary and all of those things. Some of you might be skeptics like I was. When I did that, I immediately knew I had found my people. I realized there were others that shared that same passion for transformation, for helping people in this very unique way. I also realized that it was the one-on-one of what I was writing and speaking about. And that really leads me to introducing my guest today that I think you're going to really enjoy learning from. So I literally I took a leap, a big leap. I sold my PR business. I thought that I would get everything up and running in like 6 months because I'm super optimistic. And I just went for it with the writing and the speaking. I did get a book deal. That was part of my goal. I self-published the book. Then I got a deal for that first book with Random House. And then I transitioned out of PR. And as I was doing that, having so much respect for public relations and what it means when a third party, a media entity, invites you as a guest or writes a story about you, I thought, I need that for myself. Who do I go to, right? Even though I'm a PR person. And so a couple of years earlier, a mentor of mine, who was a PR director for a Fortune 500 company, had introduced me to a woman named L. Michelle Smith, who is now launching into her own PR firm. She is actually the first person who got me an interview on CNN. That was 2002. She made an introduction that led to me writing a monthly column for Heart and Soul magazine that went on for several years.
You're taking me back.
Yes, you probably forgot all of these things. And on top of that, she also got me a gig for a pilot for a TV show. It was like a travel TV show that had life enrichment kind of all woven into it. And since that time, there's been multiple things that we have done together and doors that she has opened, remembering the promotion with Soft and Beautiful,
Oh, wow.
AT&T and all of this,
Yes.
anything that would make sense for an organization that she was working with that also saw this benefit from someone like me, who helps people with personal growth. Michelle has opened those doors. And so she's a friend. But it's really special when you have a friend who invests in what you do professionally. And that's exactly what happened about 5 years ago when Michelle ran across one of our ads for the Coach Training Intensive and signed up and then sent me a message. Hey, I'm doing this Coach Training Intensive. It's fascinating to me because Michelle has made this transition into coaching. She is a best-selling author. She is a certified personal and executive coach, which is our certification program for coaches that she has been through. She's a Fortune 100 advisor and CEO and founder of No Silos Communications, which is a media and consulting company.
That's what I had emailed him.
Uh-oh. That's a media and consulting company that develops high performance executive leaders, and her specialty is in women and women of color. She absolutely loves the focus on positive psychology and neuroscience informed coaching, and she is credentialed with the ICF. She is an associate certified coach, but is in process on her professional certified coach designation, which we are super excited about. And so she's got a whole host of experiences I think many of you would be able to connect with, in part because El Michelle has had a successful career already outside of coaching and then discovered, hey, there's something different, something more that I want to do. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Valorie, and hello to everyone around the globe. How exciting.
I know, isn't it? When we're like, it's one thing when it's at the Atlanta and the DC and Dallas,
Right, in Dallas, the usual
Chicago,
suspects,
all those
but
great
Bahrain?
places, right? But when we say Bahrain and Egypt and Turks and
Yes.
Caicos and Canada, that's always an additional boost of fun to have people from all over. And that I think speaks a lot to the power of coaching. What caused you to make this transition from not only your entrepreneurial career, but you've had a successful career starting out in TV news, um, going into public relations on the corporate side, and then launching a business and then going back corporate. Like I feel like you are willing to like try different things. Previously, they were all in the public relations and marketing space. And now it's coaching.
Yeah.
What caused you to take that leap?
Well, and it's very interesting. And before I answer that question, Valorie, I've got to give you your flowers because I love the way you said it's the power of coaching, but it's the power of you. I've watched you all this time for the last umpteen billion years, right? Actually take an inspiration, a passion that you had, and decide to just go for it. And no matter what came your way, you didn't stop. And I think that's the theme of this conversation today. And I think it's really interesting that our paths went the way they did, and they're very similar in a lot of ways. But to get back to the answer to your question, I had left AT&T, and if you read one of my books, you probably know that I was surplus. That's another way of saying laid off. But my
I just always love the corporate jargon.
I know, right?
All right,
Surplus.
that's a new one for me.
Yeah, surplus, which is very humane. It's saying we're getting rid of the position, not you. So I had the opportunity to stay, which is the beautiful thing. They gave me the opportunity to shop around within AT&T and see if there was a position that I wanted. And I really felt good that many of the officers there really wanted to keep me. But I had started writing a book, and I knew that it was going to be a little touch and go in order to do that while I was still in corporate. Things have kind of shifted a little bit more now with corporations and building your personal brand. But back then, which wasn't very long ago, 7 years ago, if you're doing too much outside of the corporation, people gave you the side eye. Yeah. So I had begun to speak as well for the company. And within that first 2 years that I got past the mic because the senior vice president couldn't make it. And I had to wing it, but my winging it put me on a speaking tour that never ended. In fact, it's still going now.
That's when you know you're in your gift and you're operating in a strength.
Right.
When the doors just open up and they keep opening. Yeah.
Right. A friend of mine who's still my friend today and was negotiating on my behalf actually stepped up, and he represented someone that was a part of the same campaign that you were, Inspired Mobility. He stepped up and said, my client says I should support you in any way you want. What do you want to do? You want to speak? You want to write? And I was like, speaking probably would be too high profile for corporate. Again, that tall poppy syndrome in corporate. You don't want to be too, shining too much. And then they think your brand is outshining theirs, and they get kind of weird. So I was like, well, I quietly had this content that I was trying to shape into a book. I'd been writing for Black Enterprise as a contributor, and I had just enough to piece together a narrative and pitch a book. And I said, if you could help me do that, that would be great. So quietly, we started pitching a book. But as I decided not to return to AT&T, and I had some other opportunities at other corporations. And I had this little seedling of a business because I decided back in 2018 that I should do a podcast because I wanted to expand my reach so that when it was time to sell books, I could sell them.
So I want to
really good network anyway.
Because I'm hearing something that I think there's something to this, and I have a strong belief around this, that when you decide to launch a business, you are deciding in part to market.
Yes.
Now, for some people, that's like, I don't want to market. Right? And so some of you might even state in the chat, does that part make you nervous? But I'm hearing, one, you were speaking, which always helps you reach people. They might even get inspired. I'm hearing you say you had begun writing a book that was kind of getting out there. And then now I'm hearing you say, hey, I decided to also do a podcast. All of this before you actually started coaching.
Right. And in the beginning, I thought, all things the same, I'd stay right there at AT&T and do this little bit on the side, write the book, try to get the permissions along the way if I needed them. But I knew it was going to be a little bit sticky to do that. And I had this other opportunity at another corporation where the CEO was like, you could write the book, you can do whatever you want to do. So I was thinking, well, maybe I could do both. So I walked away from AT&T without anything, which scared all of my clients, but I knew better because I ran an agency for almost a decade before I went to AT&T. So knowing also who is my source and not the resource, I knew that I would be just fine. It's just a matter of figuring out what I wanted to do. So lo and behold, I'm at home, put my daughter to bed. At the time, she was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And this was my routine. I put her to bed, and that's when I did my reading, my writing, my researching, how to put together a podcast, whatever it was. And I'm scrolling through Instagram, and here comes this ad from Valorie Burton. And I knew she was a coach. I mean, gosh, I was one of the first to say, hey, maybe we should call you a life strategist instead of a coach, way back in 2002, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew this wasn't anything new, but I scrolled past, and here she is talking about make your first 10K as a coach. It's like, what is she selling? Because number one, how did I get targeted? I'm her friend, but how did I get targeted? So it was I was laughing at first. I was like, this is fun. Let me go down the rabbit hole. So I go down the rabbit hole. I watched the video. I'm speaking. I'm talking the talk. I'm writing about what my mission is, but I need something that would activate it. I'm a big proponent of, you could speak about it, you could write about it, but unless you're doing something about it, I really don't want to hear from you, right?
So what I'm hearing partly is, and I can connect with this as well, you had that passion and that gift around the speaking, around the writing, but coaching gives you the profession that helps them actually make the changes.
Absolutely.
It's no longer just, here's how I did it, here's what you should do. It's who are you? What do you want? What's in the way? How do you move past that? And actually taking people through a process, or at least, I guess, as you were watching the webinar, you were thinking, maybe that's what I'm going to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking for something that would be the glue. And like I said, I had these other options on the table, and I was still exploring them too. So when I came to CTI, I didn't know if I wanted to be a coach. This was my opportunity to try and figure that out. And if it wasn't coaching, I'd go explore something else. But why not? I knew Valerie's reputation. I knew that this institute that she had was grounded in evidence-based practices. There was science behind it. So let's check it out. And gosh, it was probably the first 15 minutes of the first section when I was like, holy smokes, this is it. Because
what was it that told you that, Michelle? What was it about the first part of the first day of the coach training intensive that spoke to you so strongly?
Well, you and LaFern and Kimberly DeBrule didn't
Those are our two
waste.
other instructors in CTI.
Yes.
Don't know.
You didn't waste any time just getting to what coaching is. And you didn't just describe it or define it. You gave us a demonstration live on stage. Now, this was back when we would travel to Atlanta for a weekend and do the whole coach training intensive in person, right? And so Valorie gets on stage with a volunteer from the audience and she gets into coaching mode. And the first thing I recognized was, oh my gosh, she's asking a lot of questions. I didn't know that about coaching. I had no clue about coaching. All I knew was these were these wise, sage people that people went into a closed environment confidentially with and came out better. How it happened, I wasn't really sure. But I did think that maybe it was advice giving, but I wasn't sure. And certainly she started using these open-ended exploratory questions, which she told you I'm a former journalist. So that really, I was like, oh, wait, that's me all day long. I knew the difference between a clarifying question, a probing question. I knew all these things. And then I watched the magic of that process happen right before my eyes. And I was like, this is what I need. I'm writing about accelerating high-performing women in leadership to the C-suite. And this is a way to actually get them there. So
wow,
that's why.
So you touched on so many things, but one, and Michelle and I have not had a conversation about this, like how she came to find, I was going to say find her passion in coaching, but it seems like your passion was already there and it was like a discovery
Right.
Of the existence of this thing that could really help people get to where they want to be. But something that excites me is when we launched the CaPP Institute, when I started CTI, what I really wanted is for the person who, some people already know, like some of you are sitting here and you're like, I know I want to coach. I know I want to be certified. I want to go through the whole thing. Others are like, I'm intrigued by this. I'm not sure, like maybe this is it. And you were one of those people. And that's the goal of the coach training intensive, because it's not a big commitment. It's 3 days. You're going to walk away with some skills that you're going to use regardless of whether you become a full-time coach, internally, externally, part-time coach. Even if you just go back to, hey, I'm a parent, I'm a leader, I manage people, you're still going to use these skills, but you may discover, yeah, I want to go deeper with this. And that's what I'm hearing ended up happening. So you went through the coach training intensive, and then what?
Well, I stayed the extra day for the business development. That's with LaFern Kit Beatty. She does an extraordinary job. And to this day, we are like besties. Like, I call on her for things. She calls on me for things. Such great staff that you have, Valorie. I really appreciate them. But I stayed for the business development piece, knowing full well that I'd run an agency with payroll, different offices in different cities. I'd done it. You know, I'd built something from the ground up. But I was curious to know, was there something different with running a coaching business as opposed to an agency or a firm? And that was really affirming to find out that marketing and content strategy was really at the core of it. And honestly, if I hadn't added the coaching to the speaking and the writing, it was simply content. I would have been a content creator, really, and speaking along the way. But adding the coaching gave it another level of, first, professionalism. And it was kind of the glue to actually say this was a consulting firm or coaching firm of some kind. And when I left, I was so certain of what I wanted to do. I had my certificate and my first, coach training hours, continuing education hours that would get me involved in CPEC if I wanted to. And on May 1st, 2019, I launched my professional practice, and I did it with the YouTube video. And it was very compelling because so many people had kind of watched my story unfold. And the folks, especially on LinkedIn, that were professional contacts were really wondering, what's she going to do? She left here without a job, right? And so I was able to tell the story about being at this Fortune 10 company and seeing women and women of color make it to a certain part of the company, a certain rank. And then they would either leave, fizzle out, or they get stuck. And it was fascinating to me because I actually launched and built the capability for diversity and inclusion corporate communications at AT&T. And so it was very interesting to see this unfold at one of the companies that was at the very tippy top of the diversity top 50. Because if I knew it was happening there, it was happening everywhere. And I had the data to prove it. So this was the mission. And all I really needed to do was get the armor to go into war. And that's the way I saw it. If I could go in and actually advocate for these leaders, these women leaders, and by the way, anyone else that wanted to come along, because my core concept is this: if you can solve for the double disadvantage, meaning women and women of color, you have two boxes that you check that make you an outsider. If you can solve for them, you can solve for anyone. So I would go into battle with this premise. And I was actually interested to see how this first book didn't catch on with the big five right away. And there's a whole other story that goes along with that. But for the year and a half that I was waiting to get picked up, I was getting my coach training. I was still traveling and I was speaking, but I was also building my practice and meeting this core audience in these coaching sessions and learning from them what was happening from their perspective. And I learned that my story was her story and her story. All you had to do was just fill in a different name, different company, different part of the country, different part of the globe sometimes. And we had this. So one of the lessons that I want to share with you guys is, if it seems like you're having to wait for something that you think you deserve, wait, because there's something that you're going to learn in that time frame that's going to make whatever it is that you're trying to do even better.
That's so good. So I hear so much passion and specificity about who you help, and why you help them. And it comes out of your own experience. So one, I want to encourage those of you who you have something you've been through or some experience that you have and you think, does this connect to coaching? You might not know exactly how right now, but when you start taking the steps forward, the answers start to reveal themselves, right? I think part of that process is trusting and knowing that all things can come together and make sense for where you're supposed to go from here. Also, for some, they're like, I don't know what it is. I just know that I love coaching. I love helping people solve challenges or seize opportunities. It's different for all of us. But what I'm seeing here is you had a passion, and what you kept doing is preparing as though something good and big
Yes.
was going to happen.
Yes.
That's a mindset. And in coaching, we would call it a coaching mindset, right? Because we have to walk the talk. That doesn't mean we have to be perfect at what we do, because we can't be perfect at it. But it means that we're stepping out of our comfort zone. We're taking leaps of faith. We're constantly learning and growing. What I have found over the years is my willingness to do that, coupled with being transparent in that process, attracted opportunities, clients.
Absolutely.
Because people, as you just said, are like, oh, that's my story too.
Right.
So I've got, well, I've been asking you questions, but I've got more questions. I got to put my glasses on.
Sure.
I think we've covered why, what influenced your decision to go into coaching education, and even why the CaPP Institute, because of your interest in the evidence-based coaching. Did you have any hesitations? Like, because you weren't looking for a coach training program. It was like, it found you. You took the leap. Yeah, this isn't, I can make this investment to see if I'm interested. But then you kept going. It was the certification. It was the mentor coaching experience. It was then applying for your credential. Were there any hesitations along the way as to whether coaching was the right thing. And I ask that with the caveat that I have encountered even people going through certification who struggled with leaving a previous career. And
Mhm.
everybody here is not leaving a career. Some are wanting to take the coaching skills
Right.
internally, but sometimes it is the here's what my identity is over here. Here's how I see myself professionally. Did you have hesitations around being a coach or presenting yourself as a coach, whether internally or in your own practice?
I didn't. And I know some people do. A lot of people do. I did not. And I would learn through the coach training as we really unpack the positive psychology behind it. I was trained in a way by my parents that if I was leaning into my values
Mm.
and I knew my purpose, that there was no reason why I should stop. In fact, that was the reason to press the gas. And so learning that in positive psychology, as I was actually doing it, was a real light bulb moment for me to hear the concept that when you lean into your values, it inspires intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And when you can tap into intrinsic motivation, and extrinsic is not bad, of course, when you get deadlines from your editor, you know you
Right.
need to get it done, right? But if you know that you're writing that book for a higher purpose, that's going to keep you fueled and going, even when there are slow pays,
Yeah.
even when the pandemic happens, right in the middle of you writing the first book.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, gee whiz, this agent has sat on my book for a year and it needs to get out. You do some extraordinarily bold things.
Yep.
And that's how No Thanks got published.
Yeah.
It was July of 2019 when I discovered this agent wasn't going to really do much with my book. And she was pretty much saying, you should write something else about entrepreneurship. And I was like, lady. So I'll let you guys in on a secret. The title of the book, which is actually the first book that I was trying to pitch of a different title, it morphed because of the training that I was doing. It became a coaching guide, and affirmations are the 7 ways to say, I'll just include myself. That title was a message to that agent. No
Wow.
thanks, I'll just include myself.
So
And that's
this
why I did it
idea,
self-published.
so this idea around your passion for helping women get to the C-suite, kind of get through the block or the ceiling, coach training actually helps you see that you wanted to coach as a writer.
Yes.
Wow. I
That book is a coaching manual, and most of the people, the readers that have picked it up, they say they don't put it down. If they put it down, they pick it up again because they've written notes at the end of every chapter. They go back and remind themselves of the 7 affirmations. Again, y'all, that's positive psychology.
yeah,
To be able to say, I am my best advocate. That's an affirmation. And
yeah,
weaving that into the storytelling and such, that book would not be the book that it is if it weren't for the challenges. So we both know there's a message in the mess,
yep, there's
and
a
you have to be
message in the
willing to get messy.
there's something there. You went straight to saying, "Hey, I'm gonna go through training." I took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Am I sure? Do I want to spend the money? Is this thing real? For me, and I connect with what you're saying here, and I think this is so valuable. Sometimes we're waiting for outside validation
Mm-hmm.
of what we already know. When you say, you were leaning into your values, I am curious, and I'm going to ask you in a second what specific values those were, but I know
Yes.
for myself, when I started writing, same thing occurred. And there was a point at which I said, I'm not going to wait on someone else to tell me that what I have to say is valuable to someone. I have something to write and I want to help people. So I bought a book about how to self-publish a book, and I published my book with the goal of getting a big publisher.
Awesome.
Um, I want to congratulate you because although the deal is not final, you have now gotten a multi-book deal with a major publisher.
Yes. for the two books you see behind me and one that is forthcoming. And the beauty of that is it goes back to what you said. Even when people are saying no to you and you know that it's aligned with your values, which for me are faith, family, and freedom. And I mean that for my target audience as well. You know, you can't truly be free unless you have access to the things that other people have access to that allows them to soar. One of those things is an executive coach. How many of you know that your company is not going to invest in one for you? More likely than not. There have been some exceptions until you reach a certain level in that corporation. And for so many folks, especially women, they top off in the middle of the pipeline and they're either spewing out or they get stuck and they never make it to the level where the company would buy or pay the cost for an executive coach. So all of these tenets of leaning into your values and intrinsic motivation, and a lot of people don't have access to until someone like me comes along and offers my service, not just to the corporations, but to individuals too.
Yeah.
So seeing the thread of the positive psychology, and then I started to weave in the neuroscience because I wanted to see how to make these habits actually curl over and people take hold to them based on the way our brains work. It marries so well with positive psychology in a lot of ways. I've been able to weave those tenets into all three of these books, especially the one coming up, and carve out a positioning for myself of a leadership author who happens to be Black and female, the only one in the leadership aisle that's taking science and evidence-based tenets and blending it with culture. Nobody else is doing it. And I think that is the thing that caused this big 5 publisher to say, wait, whoa, let me take a look at what this is. And I'll tell you what the name of the book is upcoming, which may, I don't know,
please do
tell you. It's called Call and Response, 10 Leadership Lessons from the Black Church, which you're probably going, what? Fascinating. She's going to be talking about the church and the business style? Yes, ma'am, I am. Because this certain segment of people, I have noticed the ones that make it to the top or somewhere near the top, they have that one thing in common. And that is that they grew up in this wellspring of leadership skill building. And it hasn't been recognized as such. But I did the research and I found 10 qualities, leadership qualities that are unique to this institution. And throughout there's storytelling, there's my story, there's their stories, but there's also these tenets. And just like with no thanks and yes, please, at the end of every chapter, you get the coaching questions. You're going to get the neuroscience all the way through. So
Michelle, your passion is so obvious. We're going to transition in a minute into answering some questions. I see questions already in the chat. But obviously, as you've moved along, it's like as you're moving along your journey, what I'm seeing is that you discover new things. You then incorporate those things into how you are speaking, coaching, and so forth. So I'm curious about your advice, even though as coaches, we don't tend to give advice. You're not coaching right now. So we won't
I'm not. I'm speaking
about your insider advice. So for the person, man or woman, wherever they are from, who is sitting here listening to this conversation, and maybe they know what their vision is. Maybe they haven't admitted what their vision is. They've got it. It might scare them a little bit, which being scared and excited at the same time is actually a good thing. Probably means you're in the right place.
Just stop like that.
What piece of advice do you have for them as they consider starting down the path to becoming a coach?
Be crystal clear on your why. Be crystal clear. And even if it hasn't curled all the way over, meaning knowing what your purpose is, explore while you consider your why.
Yeah.
My dad taught me something a long time ago, and it's interesting because my 11-year-old daughter asked me in the car just yesterday. She said, "Mommy, is it important that I know what I want to be when I grow up right now?" And I said, "Joni, That's interesting you would raise that question, because I've told you the story of driving to TCU well past, and that's my alma mater, by the way, well past the admissions deadline, with my mother threatening me, "You're going to figure out what your major is going to be before we get out of this car." It's a little extrinsic motivation, right? I did come around to it, and ultimately it was writing, but I'm so glad that that actually panned out, because I actually love writing. But the fact is that you don't have to know everything about the outcome. And that's scary to a lot of folks. Now, one of my values is faith. So whatever you believe in, this may be your opportunity to lean into that and start to explore. Now, the practical side of this is this. It takes money to make money. And if you're about to branch out on your own, it would be ill-advised for either one of us to say that you can just go out there with a dream and your purpose and make it happen. When I left AT&T, a lot of my merit bonuses were in stock. So I was excellent at AT&T. Okay. I had the awards and the merit, the reviews, the exceeds ratings to prove it. And so I got to cash those in. So it wasn't just the lump sum that they gave me going out the door. I knew that something would have to sustain me. I literally got paid stock options paid out for the next 2-3 years. So I knew with that and my ability to really ramp up a consulting part of the business pretty quickly, that I could live and sustain and pour more money into the business that was going to support my purpose. So I want to be very crystal clear with you guys that just going out on a wing and a prayer is ill-advised. And, LaFern is going to talk to you about business development. And there are some things that I've kind of graduated with because I did run an agency before. So it may seem a little bit simpler for me to just get things up and running. The third thing I would say, do not compare yourself to someone else who's kind of in the same lane, wanting to do the same thing. Everybody's journey is different and yours is valid. So take your time and go on your path. And no thanks, they even say, do you, not her, because you don't know what brought her to this point, first of all, and you definitely don't know what motivates her. So if you can align yourself with your values and be brave enough to take your journey, despite what's going on around you, don't hurt yourself trying to be Valorie tomorrow. You will hurt yourself, okay? It will hurt. So just be you and be okay with it.
I think there's so much richness in everything that you're saying. I think one, the transparency of, yes, I set some things up. I had some opportunities financially. I could plan it over a couple of years. People sometimes ask me, it wasn't that I had a ton of money, even in selling the business. That wasn't like a big thing. It was, I worked up until that point, paying down debt. And my expenses were very low when I decided to make the big full leap. And I made some sacrifices. But also, one of the things we teach in our business development is around how do you do something gradually? You keep mentioning one of our instructors, LaFern Beatty. I had the honor of being her one-on-one coach, her executive coach at the time when she was planning an exit, right? And over the course of 2 or 3 years, she's doing this over here while she's doing her full-time job. For others, it's, I don't want to coach on my own.
Right.
How do you begin to get those contacts that allow you to coach internally and turn that into something full-time? And we've got faculty in our program who do that. So there's kind of a wide variety. There's the entrepreneurial coach. And then there are the coaches that are coaching for coaching organizations on our faculty, coaches who are coaching full-time for major companies that you already know of, because coaching has expanded a great deal over this last 20 plus years. When I started, there were very few internal coaches. Today, there are a lot more. Okay, so we're going to dive into some Q&A. I see some in the chat, so we will start there. All right. Mirjam is asking about the maximum participants that we let into the program. Generally speaking, during the coach training intensive, we're going to have somewhere between 50 and 80 that are in that program. There are 3 co-trainers training at the same time. And you will be in cohorts of 3 when you're actually coaching. You start coaching on the very first day. So our online coach training intensive is pretty amazing, actually. The amount of uh, intimacy and the amount of, I think for many people, they think, oh, I have to be in person. And we have some people that are here that have been through our CTI and CPEC programs. It's amazing how much you can learn and grow and connect and how close that feels. And then in our certification program, which our coach training intensive is the prerequisite for the certified personal and executive coach program. CTI being a 3-day program. If you opt out of the 3rd day, which is business development, it's 2 days. That's your prerequisite to do our 6-month certification program. The certification program starts in July and in January. So if you were to go through our June CTI that's coming up, you could then enter CPEC that starts in July. Okay. The 3rd program, which I saw a question around this, is MCE. That is our mentor coaching experience. That is a 10-hour mentor coaching program. You are being coached 7 hours in a group format and 3 hours of one-on-one coaching of your coaching skills, where we actually evaluate your coaching skills and how well you're aligning those with the ICF core competencies. So in
Hey,
CPEC,
hey,
we,
is that my?
uh-oh, put yourself on mute. In CPEC, we generally have somewhere around 60 to 65 people in that program. Mentor coaching, because it's coaching and not a class, is limited to 10 people in each one of those cohorts. So we have multiple mentor coaching going on at the same time. When you're inside of CPEC, now I say 60 to 70, that's not how many people are in your classes, because we offer class times at 2 times, right? So you can do 12 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. Eastern. So what that means is that cuts the class size in half. For our coaching labs, which is about 40% of what you'll be doing, it's even smaller. So we've got double labs going on to make the coaching labs even smaller. So what we're doing there is making sure we're able to give you an opportunity to coach, the opportunity to get feedback, and so forth. So hopefully that answers your question around that, Mirjam. All right, Larry is asking, does the program cover all levels of ICF certification? How long is the regular coach training program? All right, so we have one certification, which is the Certified Personal and Executive Coach program. That program, you're going to do about 69 hours in total, all right, for certification. There is only one certification at this time we're offering through the CaPP Institute. If you are talking about your ICF credential, the ICF is the International Coaching Federation. I just mentioned Michelle is an ACC. That's the first level coaching credential. And she just recently applied for her PCC, which is the next level credential. I am an MCC now, which is a Master Certified Coach. So we are launching a program beyond CPEC later this year. You'll be getting information about that. If you want to be on the waiting list for it, please go out to the website and make sure you add yourself to the waiting list. That will give you the additional hours to apply for the next level of ICF credential. Or if you're already a PCC and you're wanting to go to MCC and you need more training hours, you could go through that program, and that designation will be the Advanced Professional Coach certification. All right. Woo. All right. How is the CTI program different from the 10 Maxwell Leadership Coaching modules? Would it be a good next step? The answer is yes. I designed it specifically in that way and worked also with Maxwell Leadership. The way that Mark Cole asked me to create the program for Maxwell Leadership was so that if you wanted to go to the next step, it would be into the CaPP Institute. So it's deliberately created that way. You're getting a foundational program there if you're inside of Maxwell Leadership. But like I said, all of that is what's called asynchronous hours, which means you do it at your own pace. It's not live. There's not an interaction with me. It's simply me teaching you. And that's probably around 15 to 17 hours. So that's not enough to get you any level of a credential with the ICF. So if you're wanting to go further, you've got a really good foundation there, Mirjam. And I think it would be a natural step to go to the coach training intensive and then CPAC. We've got a different coaching framework in that. You're used to the AOOA. We've got a different framework, proprietary, called Acera. Michelle, you know what Acera is. Can you share a little bit about the power of having the structure of a coaching session, which we teach on the first day of CTI?
I was muted. So yes, absolutely. So the coaching session is structured. It's very intuitive. And this Acera method that she mentioned, each letter stands for a part of the session. When you first come on, you agree, right?
Oh, you're not going to give them the whole thing here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Don't want to do that. But ultimately, it drives you to the results that you're after if you follow it, and it keeps you on track. That's what I'll say.
We could go into teaching, but we're going to teach.
Yeah, that's true. Leave something to the imagination.
Everything. What it does is it gives you confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're doing, even if, well, the client's not going to know, nor will they care. What they care about is the fact that they're getting the answer that they're looking for. They're moving.
I will say this, though. Recently, I have added that method into my proposals, and I think you saw that.
Yes.
And it was a selling point because there's so many different coaches out there, trained or not, and you don't know what you're getting. And so many of them want to know what that customer journey looks like. And to find out that there's actually structure around it, I mean, it's been a winner for me.
That's awesome. So I really think that with coaching, people know it works. There's so much more research around that now. Companies are investing in major ways in coaching initiatives, but sometimes people don't understand why it works. So being able to share that you have a specific method and way of doing things and why it works is powerful, because it's extra information. As she's saying, she includes that in her proposal. She's got an awesome proposal process, by the way. She shared one with me recently. It gives people confidence when they know you have been professionally trained and there's a method to what you do, and you know that that method works. That's huge. Yes, Abby is asking about executive coaching. So the certification is a certified personal and executive coach training, both in CPAC, and then later this year, if you were to move on after CPAC into our advanced professional coach program, address concepts around executive coaching. All right, Kristen or Alexis, am I missing anything?
Yeah, such great questions.
Oh, I see. Is it Tatia? Okay, she said, oh, I think I'm answering. She said, what scares me is training that's 3 days. I feel I'll walk away with all the information, and then what? I'm reading about needing all these hours for ICF. Currently in a master's program with 8 weeks, and I'm still reeling from all the information. So you're talking about something that we can explain in positive psychology. You don't want to have goal fatigue, right? We do things in bite-sized pieces. Obviously, the 3-day training is just a 3-day commitment. If you know you are interested in coaching, investing in that 3 days is powerful, and it sets you up for when you decide to go through certification. If you go through our 6-month program, you're going to have classes twice a week. Those classes are 1 hour each. You'll want to dedicate probably 3 hours or so outside to homework. You want to make sure you're coaching at least 2 people. You're going to be in a cohort, so you're going to have a couple of people that you are like this with, and you can even choose to do back and forth coaching with them. You don't have to be coaching paid clients during CPAC, but you can as soon as you're done with CTI if you've got that opportunity. So we like to help you figure out, kind of map out your schedule, because some people's schedules are busier than others. Many are parents, many are working full-time or demanding positions, but it is possible? Michelle, you were one of those people. How did you manage the
I was going to
time?
share, just so y'all know, I'm a mom in chief. I'm divorced, sole custody of my daughter. And when I hit the road to speak this first year that I was talking about, I did between 30 and 40 speaking ops. I had my laptop with me the entire time, not just for coaching, but for class. So there were times when I was in hotel rooms getting my face done, listening to the sessions, and they're all recorded, and you can always go back and listen. But it's totally doable, even if you are busy.
Yeah. It's about making the commitment and saying, this is what I want to do. When we really want to do something, we find a way to do it. And I think the same is with making the investment financially. Even if it takes a little longer, when you decide you want to do it, you go, okay, this is what I need. All right, how can I make that happen? And so if you've decided, if you know, like Michelle's talking about, if your values are pulling you in this direction, this is a great opportunity. It's a coaching opportunity. Coach yourself. Not can I do this, but how can I do this? What would I have to shift or change, right? Who can help? And you make that plan. And then that's the part of walking the talk. People begin to see you're making changes. You're stepping out of your comfort zone. They want to know how you're doing it. How? It's coaching. All right. Teresa asks, is anyone doing coaching in the post-rehabilitation for addictions? I would say, I'm guessing the answer is yes. I don't have specific examples where what we would say is, you said post rehabilitation. So I'm thinking that's maintenance for someone who has overcome. We talk a lot about the difference between coaching and counseling or therapy, the difference between a wound and a scar, right? The wound being still open, that's really therapy. The scar being, this happened in my past, I've healed, I've overcome, I'm ready to move from where I am to where I want to be. Not necessarily that I'm overcoming the past, but I'm ready to move into the future. So there would need to be a good assessment, a way to assess if people are ready for coaching when they have dealt with an issue that clearly is a therapeutic issue. But there are people doing that. There are therapists that say, hey, you need coaching, right? So people do both simultaneously, as well as moving from one into another. Okay, Heloise is asking about being in a different country. Listen, we have had people go through our programs at this point from 31 countries and all 50 states. So we are used to multiple time zones. We have had people this year joining from the Middle East, from Australia, from Asia, from countries in Africa. And we acknowledge, right, because they may be going through the coach training intensive, and when we finish, it's 1 a.m. But again, they're making the decision, this is what I want to do. So if you go through certification, class times are 12 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time and 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. So you figure out where that is for you. We've had people, they're calling in from China or Japan. It's a 12-hour difference. So they're like, I'm going to do 7 a.m. my time, right? It's 7 p.m. here. But hopefully one of those times is something that you would be able to work out. But this is not unusual. You won't be the only person joining from outside of the United States. Okay, Michelle, this is for you. Would you mind stating if there were any primary personal hurdles that you had to get over? You mentioned your faith. How did faith help you get over it? And are there times when new personal hurdles show up?
Okay, can I just say really informally, life be lifing, okay? Life happens, and we have to know going into life that things can just happen out of the blue.
Yeah.
This book, Yes, Please, the green one that you see behind me, I guess I was on time publishing it, but it wasn't the plan to get it out in 2023 in June. It was the plan to get it out in 2022.
Wow.
However, my father became ill. My little baby girl went through bullying at school. I had to take her out and homeschool her. Let me also remind you again, I am a mom in chief. At some point, we have to come to the decision of those 4Ds. Remember, Valorie, either you're going to do it, delay it, delete it, or what's the
delegate
other
it.
one?
Delegate.
Delegate. Right? And in this situation, I delayed the launch of my book because, again, my values are faith, family, and freedom.
Yep.
Family being a very important one, right? So to tend to my daughter was the most important thing. Tending to my aging parents was a close second. And in many cases, I had to be pulled in both directions.
Yeah.
But I had to put the book down. I had to delay it. And I had to be okay with it. Let me give you the neuroscience in that, okay? Your brain has to be calm in order to focus. And the only way we get to focus, only way we get to insight is focus. So if you can't focus, you can't have insight. And guess what? If you don't have insight, you can't innovate or be creative.
So good. So on point.
So you have got to understand when you need to prioritize things in a different way. So you can't be married to the idea that things are just supposed to be one linear process. It just doesn't work.
Flexibility.
Flexibility is everything. And
Adaptability.
believe me, I had to lean into my faith like crazy because I'm these types. I set my deadline, and I was marketing the book already. I was like, I have to tell people that it's going to be, you know what? So what? I set the deadline.
They'll be okay.
They'll be fine, right? And yes, just understanding that there's a degree of control that I do not have.
Yeah.
That's where the faith comes in for me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a little piece on that, but first, because I know some of you had to go at the top of the hour, I want to tell you about something special that we have going on for those listening now, and then we will finish up the Q&A. Michelle, are you able to stay?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. All right. This is so fun. All right. So as I mentioned, we've got an upcoming coach training intensive. It is June 8th through the 10th. Check your calendar, see if you can come. If you have been a part of this preview call, you can get an extra $100 off of your CTI registration. Now, this makes it similar to our super early bird registration, which ended last night. All right, we're currently in early bird where you still save $100, but the code is preview. That's it. The code is preview. If you're a part of this preview call, you can still then get $200 off of your CTI registration. And that is going to apply until what day? Is that Friday, Alina?
Yes, it's Friday.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So that's something special that we're doing. Our goal at the CaPP Institute is really helping you unlock your full potential and the values and the dreams that you've got through coaching. So as we said, our flagship program is the Coach Training Intensive. That's where everything starts. We're taking you on a journey because as you all have a lot of questions, and that's only natural when you're thinking about doing something new. We want to make it easier. And that's how we've created the program. So you come in and we're basically helping you get all the things that you need in order to succeed when it comes to coaching. So CTI, which is the Coach Training Intensive, gives you that foundational knowledge, those skills, that confidence rooted in positive psychology. I saw someone ask, do we explain a Sarah? Look, you're going to live and breathe a Sarah as a coach, and we'll go into detail about exactly what that process is and how to do it. We've aligned our programs. We've chosen to align our programs with the International Coaching Federation. Here's the reason. Coaching is a powerful profession. It is a discipline on its own. We really believe that there are competencies and ethics that every coach should follow. We also believe that this shouldn't be a program that's just, oh, here's what the CaPP Institute came up with, or here's what worked for Valorie, or here's what worked for this other instructor. No, there is research around the science of human flourishing, and there is research around what works when it comes to coaching. And we felt that if we have an outside organization comprised of tens of thousands of coaches around the world to evaluate our program, and we submit ourselves to those standards, it's a higher level of accountability that we are choosing to involve ourselves in. So when you hear us talk about ICF, that's what we're doing. We want to set you up so that you're getting a certification from the CaPP Institute, but if you would choose down the road to get a coaching credential from the ICF, we have aligned everything we've taught you. We've aligned your mentor coaching with those requirements. All right. So CTI is 3 days. If you opt out of business development for whatever reason, perhaps you're like, I'm never going to do it on my own. I just need the coaching skills for whatever reason. That's fine. But I would say 80-90% do all 3 days. This sets you up to go through the 6-month live online program. And you're going to be with a cohort. We kind of assign you a cohort that's going through it with you together. And we are a level 1 accredited coach training program. That means that when you go through CPEC as the level 1 program, you also are going to do mentor coaching. That is 10 hours dedicated to helping you improve your coaching skills and prepare, should you decide to get an ICF credential, to apply for one, to be prepared for that process. So that's our program. We talk about its 3 steps. It's CTI. You could decide to go to CTI. That's it. I'm done. I got some skills. This is going to help me with what I want to do. Decide you want to get certified as a coach. You go through CTI. You want to be fully prepared with your coaching skills being evaluated and you're being coached on those skills. You also do MCE. That comprises our level 1 program. So we would love to join you. We would love to support you if you decide to make the leap. And we make the leap not so scary. You're leaping, but we're right there with you. And as Michelle has talked about, she's been through all of those programs. All right. So preview is your code. You can register now for CTI and still get full $200 off, but that's only this week. That ends on Friday for those who've been in this preview call. So we got a question. Okay, templates. Okay, you get a lot of resources when you go through CTI and CPEC. And so everything from your coaching intake forms, all of the stuff you're going to need to set up your coaching practice. And yes, we give you the soft copies, you include your logo, you edit it, do whatever you want with it. They're templates that are usable and easy for you to get started immediately without having to reinvent the wheel. We don't want you needing to do that. Plus, when you do that, sometimes you miss things. We don't want you to miss. All right. Did I miss any questions? I'm still scrolling through. It looks like,
Yeah, quite a bit of them were actually answered, like we were answering them as we went along, but I wanted to make sure we highlighted any that were good for the group. There was one question about taking CTI in June and then waiting to take CPEC. So we answered it in the chat, but thought that that might be beneficial
Yeah.
for the group.
once you take CTI, you have finished the prerequisite. And when you are ready to go through certification, you can. So you may start certification the next month. You may decide you're going to start it the next year. You may decide you're going to start it in 3 years. Once you've done CTI, you have completed the prerequisite. So there isn't a limit on, when you have to begin CPEC if you decide to do that. Gwen, I agree with you. She said, thank you, Michelle, for sharing your journey. Very inspiring. Absolutely. A couple people have asked if you're taking pre-orders. Michelle, where do they go to pre-order your book?
That's awesome. Well, it's not going to be released until 2026 in wintertime. So next year will probably be when we announce pre-release. So you're a little early, but I do believe Alexis just put the link to my author page in the chat.
Excellent.
At Amazon. So you can look into my other books.
I want to point something out here. Someone just asked about, when things don't go as planned, like this is what coaching is for. Coaching helps you to be resilient in the face of challenges or even opportunities that you might have fears or doubts around. When I took that leap and decided I was going to write and speak and coach full time, that same year, my mother had a brain aneurysm. And you probably remember that time period. I stepped off of the kind of the speaking for a while. I needed to help my mom be able to recover as she had lost all her physical abilities at that time, and I was helping with my brother. But things worked themselves out exactly as they needed to. And I didn't lose the vision. So I think what's really helpful is for us to expect that the unexpected will happen. We don't, sometimes the unexpected is good stuff, right? It's an opportunity we
Yeah.
weren't expecting. That's what happened with me, for those of you from Maxwell Leadership. Like I had planned my first summer hiatus, which I've been doing every year, my first one in 2021. And I just knew, like, I planned that. I was also working on a book proposal. I was like, as soon as I'm done with the book proposal, I'm on hiatus. And then lo and behold, that's when John's CEO, Mark, called me and said, hey,
I wondered about that because I remember you saying, I'm going on hiatus. And I was
yeah,
like,
I'm going on hiatus. And I chopped about 30 days off of that hiatus. But what an amazing opportunity that circled back to connections and things that had happened, gosh, in 2004, 2005, when I began doing things with John Maxwell's company then. And for them to see what had happened with the CaPP Institute and say, hey, can you come in and serve as our coaching mentor? That was a great but unexpected opportunity. And a part of being resilient is being able to say, yeah, I had a plan, but I'm going to need to change my plan. And in changing my plan, maybe things have been orchestrated for my good. Maybe this has happened for a reason. Maybe I left out of my PR firm at this time in part because of what was going to be happening in my family. And I didn't have to go to an office every day.
right.
I could tend to my mom at
Mhm.
that time. It would have been a much harder thing if my life had been set up differently, but it wasn't. And so sometimes we just have to trust the process and don't be afraid that the unexpected is going to happen, but trust that when it does, there will be a coaching opportunity for how you're going to adapt and be flexible and grow through that challenge and not just go through that challenge. That's a big part of what we help people to do as coaches. Oh, Michelle, I could go on and on with you.
I know. I was like, that is so on point because that's what happened with the book deal. They
Yeah,
came looking for me, and it was really about a relationship that I had nurtured that I had no idea was going to
yeah,
be a part of this publisher.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
stuck around.
yeah. And you know what? Same here.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to write a book proposal in 2021, but I wasn't, that wasn't going to be the right book. And
Mm-hmm.
I myself just signed a book deal with Tyndale House about a month and a half ago, and last week started writing my next book.
Awesome.
Will be out in
Y'all
August
get her books.
2025. But the
Amazing.
timing is what it's supposed to be. I thought I've got to be on this schedule because I published a book in 2020 and I'm behind and I should. No, we were building some things in CaPP. I was building some things with this opportunity with Maxwell Leadership. And this book is coming out when it's supposed to.
Yes.
And I feel fully confident about that. So anyone listening, and some of you are beating yourselves up because you've been thinking about coaching for a long time and you're finally like, oh, I'm going to go do it. I should have done it 3 years ago, last year. Well, maybe this now is the right time, and let go of what should have been and think about what could be now if you just focus and accept where you are. And as Michelle said, lean into those values. All right. I think we're going to read this very last chat comment, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm trying to make sure I'm not falling into the forever certification syndrome. Okay, you're Maxwell certified, ramping up for your business. The end of this month, focusing on coaching, leadership training, and IT management. You knew of the ICF certification, but wanted a combination. All right, let me get down to the question. You've signed up for the June CTI in the interim. Yeah, doing a little, learning a lot. If I should be slowing down on the certification path a little, it's probably too late. Listen, I don't think learning coaching skills is ever going to be something that you regret. Ever. I use my coaching skills with my children.
Amen.
It's powerful.
Yes.
So, and I don't just say that because of this business. I say it because I believe in coaching, because coaching has transformed my life being coached by others has transformed everything. It has gotten me through the most difficult moments of my life personally, and it has helped me build exactly the life that I believe was meant for me. And so I'm like an evangelist for coaching because I know it works, not just because I've watched it work as I've coached others and watched others coach others, but because it's worked as I have been coached. I wouldn't be where I am and as in as much peace as I am about my life, if not for the coaching process. So, yeah. Any last minute inspiration or pieces of advice, Michelle?
Well,
And you
I
don't
would,
have to have any.
okay. I would say that you should probably not be too concerned about what you can see, because there are other things that you can't see that could be good.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to figure out if you should do this or not, just reach deep down inside and see what the little voice is telling you.
Yeah. And pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. I agree. Michelle, Michelle. I'm sorry. I still call her
Known you
Michelle,
so long. I've known you so long.
but it's Michelle. Okay. Which
Brand.
is beautiful. I love it. That's the power of branding.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you. I'm rooting for you. I'm happy for you. I want every one of you to understand there is enough room for all of us as coaches because this work is needed in the world. And so anytime I see someone doing this work and especially finding their passion, their niche, and how they are making an impact, I want to promote it. And I'm just so proud of what you are doing and the opportunities in front of you. And I know we're going to see more and more. But thank you for being willing to share so much of your journey with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to engage. I would never dream of saying no to Valorie. You're such a great friend and you've built such an amazing business.
Thank you. Thank you, El Michelle. And thank all of you for joining us. I hope we see you in June at our live online coach training intensive. I hope you get the deal that we're offering this week. Specifically, use the code preview. Use it today through Friday. You'll get another $100 off in addition to the early bird registration discount period, which is $100 off. So that's $200 total that you'll get off when you register this week using the code preview. We look forward to seeing you in June. If you know anyone who's thinking about coaching, tell them about this. We'll be sending you the replay later on today and they can watch. So thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And we just appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Bye-bye, everyone.